guys, so gonna do a video that I realized I have not done in 12 years on YouTube, even though I've been asked this question many times on live chats, and that is comparing the Beretta 92 series of pistols to a Taurus PT92. Now obviously there are many variations of these two guns. On this one you've got the M9, the M9A1, you've got the the A3s, the A2s, you've got just the standard 92FS. This is the standard 92FS or 92A1 with the Taurus. They've got so many different models out there. Less variation on the Taurus than there is on the Beretta as far as actual design features and things like that, but still a lot of models of both. So we're going to compare these as best we can, given that you might come across a standard 92FS with no Picatinny rail, for instance. And that would be a comparison point that you want to make between the two. So let's just kind of jump right in and talk about them. For the most part, these have way more in common than they don't. And that's kind of the key thing to pull away from that. And then when we're all said and done, I'll kind of give you my opinion on the pros of both of these and give you the breakdown on which one I think might be better, depending on what your reason for picking up one of these guns is. But far more in common than they have different. If we look at the guns side by side, we can see, I mean, a lot of similarities. I mean, different grips. These are some whole grips I put on this gun. I've had this one for 14 years. On the Beretta, this is just some wood grips that I put on here. I've had this one for about a little over a year, maybe a year, 2 months, I don't know, something like that. We can see both have Picatinny rails. We'll look a little bit more at that. Differences in the serrations here on the slide, but that's just design choices. For the most part, the guns are pretty much identical in most ways. I mean, this one has a threaded barrel, this one doesn't, but other than that, we look at the rear sights. Both are steel rear sights. The rear sights on the Taurus are a little bit thicker and come back a little further than the ones on the Beretta. Front sight, if this Beretta was a standard 92FS, it would have a standard fixed front sight. This one is dovetailed in, but normally if it was a 92FS, it would be a fixed front sight like this one on the PT92. There are some differences here when it comes to the rails itself. You can see that on the Beretta here, they have milled out the center section like you see on a lot of rail sections. This flat ground piece on the underside of the dust cover comes back a little farther than it does on the Taurus, but if you look at this, you'll notice that it's kind of undercut here, so there's some material that's been taken away because it's undercut in front of the trigger guard, whereas on the Taurus it's not. It just comes straight back into the trigger guard. And then of course the trigger guard itself is a little different between these two. This is the standard kind of hook trigger guard that a lot of Berettas have. This one on the 92A1, which again if this was a 92FS it would look like this, but on the 92A1 it's got a more rounded trigger guard, which actually has more room inside the trigger guard itself. So if you had like gloved hands and you need to get a finger in there, you could, and it would be a lot easier to use the gun with gloves on. Now, outside of that, the biggest difference on these two guns is going to be the safety. Beretta, you have a slide-mounted safety. Taurus, you have a frame-mounted safety. Now, as far as how they function, they're similar but different. And to me, this is the thing that ultimately is probably going to, if you're going purely on functionality, the safety is the thing that should make your decision, which type of safety you prefer. On the Beretta, essentially what you have is a safety decocker. The safety only works when the hammer is down, so you can put it on safe and you've got a dead trigger. If the hammer is back and you put it on safe, it decocks the gun. Those are the only two options, and then once it decocks the gun, the trigger is dead. That's it. So you can either carry it like this, one in the chamber on double action, and then every subsequent shot after that would be single action, or you carry with the safety on, hammer down, and that's it. Those are the only two choices with this particular safety setup. A lot of people like that. You know, it's all personal preference. As far as the Taurus goes, Taurus is more of a hybrid between this and a 1911 style safety, but add in a little bit of a decocker, and that's kind of what you've got here. So you could carry the gun just like this, double action, first shot, hammer down, long trigger pull, long, heavier trigger pull, first shot, every subsequent shot would be single action after that. Or you could have the hammer back, one in the chamber, carry it like that, just like you would in 1911, cocked and locked. Gun's not going to go off. You pull from the holster, slap the safety down, pull the trigger, okay? So that's a different option of carry, or you could carry it again, just like you would carry the Beretta. Another option that you have with this one is being able to decock the gun without disabling the trigger. So you've got it like this, you're carrying it cocked and locked, you decided, I don't want to carry it cocked and locked, I want to carry it single or double action. You push down once, pull down again, decock, let go, springs back in. Now you're in double action only. Your trigger is not dead. Your trigger still works, double action, when you pull the trigger. So, functionally, those are two differences between these two guns that I think, from a user standpoint, is probably going to be the main thing that's going to make your decision. Which type of safety do you like? Me personally, I think the safety on the Taurus is better. It gives you more options for how to carry the gun. And to me, that means that it is a gun that probably more people will find a way in which they can carry it that they're comfortable with, because you have more options. There's really only one way to carry this gun if you want to be able to reasonably use the gun when you pull it from the holster, okay? And that's double action, safety off. Some people like that, that's fine. If you do, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but if you do, maybe this is the better option. Now, real quick, I want to go through the internals on these two and just kind of show you what we've got here. Take these down, just take the slides off and show you what we've got going on. Let's compare the slides here real quick. Now, for the most part, they're similar till about right here. And that's because on the Beretta here, obviously, you have your safety is all back here. So internally, there are differences here than there are in here, because this doesn't need anything other than you've got a plunger safety, so you don't have an accidental discharge or negligent discharge or anything like that. Firing pin doesn't accidentally go off until you're ready to fire. Pretty basic setup, very similar to a 1911 or a Glock or anything else, right? This one has a little more complicated rear end here to the slide because of the safety decocker that's back here. Both have full-length guide rods, although not all Berettas have full-length guide rods. The difference between these two is the Beretta has a plastic guide rod, the Taurus has a stainless steel guide rod. Now, I've even seen people buy Taurus stainless steel guide rods and put them in Berettas, because they will fit and they will work, just to have a stainless steel guide rod in your Beretta. But other than that, these two are identical, okay? As far as the frames go, pretty much the same thing, except in this particular case, because the safety on the Taurus is in here, there's some more going on. There's some more moving parts down here that aren't on this side in the Beretta, because the safety is in a different place. Other than that, the two are identical. Outside of this one, on the Beretta, the 92A1, because this frame was originally designed for 40 caliber, it has this little sleeve in here, which is a reinforcement sleeve. And even though this is 9mm, that sleeve doesn't need to be there, but because these frames are built this way, it just has it in there. Under normal circumstances, a 92FS and a PT92 from this point forward are 100% identical. So there's that, all right? Now, as far as, I guess the other thing that I want to go over here is going to be the finish on these two guns. That is something that may also help, you know, make your decision on whether or not you want one over the other. Now, for the most part, Taurus does not have a great finish. I've had this gun for 14 years, but I've never carried it. It's only been in a holster a couple of times. It's been used at the range and things like that, but I've taken really good care of it. I mean, it's got some wear around some edges and things like that, but for the most part, it's just not been a carry gun, so it's been able to be maintained rather well. I've never left it in the elements or anything like that. But this finish that Taurus uses, which I don't know what it's called, they still use today on all their guns, this kind of matte black finish, it isn't great, okay? If you're going to be carrying the gun, maybe sweating on the gun, it's going to be exposed to the elements, you've got a higher likelihood of having issues with rust on this than you do on the Beretta. The Beretta uses this kind of shinier, I think they call it a Bruiton or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm probably butchering the word. But it's just a metal finishing process, kind of similar to what Glock uses, kind of similar to, you know, with the Tennifer, kind of similar to what M&P uses with the Melanite. It's a very similar process, and it's just better than the Taurus. So you're going to have a better finish on this. It's going to be a more durable finish on the Beretta as opposed to the Taurus. So, real quick, I do want to do a weight comparison, because I want to show you guys something here real quick. So, on the... there we go. Make sure we're on the right thing here. Make sure we're on ounces. Yeah, we're on ounces. So both of these are empty, no magazine. The Taurus 31.65 ounces. The Beretta is 30.25 ounces. So just a little under an ounce and a half difference, with the Taurus being slightly heavier. Now that's for a couple reasons. One, thick rubber grips as opposed to thin wood grips. That makes a little bit of a difference. We got more material on the trigger guard, more material on the dust cover. So there are some differences that add that kind of almost ounce and a half. That may make a difference to you. I don't know. If it does, there you go. As far as magazines go, 17 round magazines either way. I know a lot of Berettas do come with 15 rounders, but you can get 17 rounders for them. It's not a problem. So end result here. What am I saying? Both are great guns. Both are amazing guns. I own both. I've had this one for 14 years. This is the third Beretta I've owned that I've only had for a little over a year, but I love it. It's a great gun. I love both these guns. I do like the safety better on the Taurus. I wish Beretta would go back to that safety, because I think it's a way, way better option for carry and having the ability to carry according to what you prefer. I just think this is a better safety system, safety decocker system. But both guns are fantastic. I can easily recommend both. Essentially what it's going to boil down to is, if you're looking for reliability at a good price, you'd go Taurus, if we're taking everything else out of the equation. If you're looking for name brand and potential value maintenance, right? Like it's going to maintain its value for a long time, even resale value, you would go with Beretta. Outside of that, really the only decision you should make is which type of safety you prefer, and then get whichever one you want. I mean, that's essentially what it boils down to. So I know, not very controversial. I'm not trashing one and saying the other one's, a Jesus gun or anything like that. They're both really, really good guns. They're both ridiculously similar. They're both very well made. There are some differences. There are some things you need to know about. That's why we went over what we did. But ultimately, I can easily recommend either one. You just have to decide which one is better for you.